Connecticut, 1992. An elderly couple, Joan and Joe Castleman, have been together for a very long time, yet even despite their age, the passion between them has not faded. Early in the morning the couple is awakened by a phone call. Joe can hardly believe it when he hears that he has been nominated for the Nobel Prize in Literature. It sounds like a prank, but it is happening for real. Joan cannot contain her emotions. Joe's books are described as witty and profound, and he himself, as a talented and multifaceted writer who has inspired generations to come. Joan and Joe celebrate his triumph. The man still cannot fully comprehend that he is a Nobel Prize laureate. This is the peak of his success, there is simply nowhere higher to go. The couple throws a party to mark the momentous occasion. In December, they will travel to Stockholm, where Joe will officially receive the Nobel Prize. Everyone admires him and tells Joan how lucky she is to be the wife of such a great man. He will be on the cover of the New York Times, but this is only the beginning. Also present at the party are the couple's pregnant daughter Susanna and their son David, an aspiring writer. Joan has already read his story and can confidently say that David has great prospects in the world of literature. Joe, however, is too busy and still has not read it, which upsets the young man. Now Joe is at the center of attention and clearly enjoying it. Wherever he steps, everyone wants to hear what he thinks. Since early morning, the phone has been ringing non-stop with requests for interviews. Joe raises a toast, thanking his family, especially his beloved wife, for their support. He says that without his loyal companion, he would have achieved none of this. So it would not be an exaggeration to say that his greatest achievement is that she agreed to marry him. Soon the couple and their son David board a plane to Stockholm. Joe is recognized everywhere. Biographer Nathaniel Bone deliberately booked the same flight as the Castlemans in order to learn more about the writer's life. Trying to draw Joe into a conversation, Nathaniel casually remarks that women like Joan often remain in the shadow of their great husbands. Losing patience, Joe declares that he never hides his wife and always thanks her. In Stockholm, the Castlemans are immediately met by the press. While Joe gives interviews, Nathaniel approaches Joan, hoping she will be more willing to talk than her husband. But Joe interrupts them to present his wife to the journalists. The Nobel Committee will provide them with every comfort, even a personal driver. Mrs. Lindelof takes care of the laureates' wives and offers Joan shopping and beauty treatments while her husband is busy preparing for the ceremony. The couple settles into their room. Joe looks through gifts and letters from numerous admirers. He is delighted like a child. The room even has a library. Joe discovers his book translated into many languages. However, he cannot help but feel that something is troubling Joan. The woman assures him that everything is fine. She is simply tired after the flight. Joe, on the contrary, believes that now is the perfect time for them to enjoy life, now that they have raised their children, bought a large house and found fulfillment in life. Or perhaps only Joe has. What place does his wife occupy in all this? Joan remembers how in 1958, she was a student at Smith College and still bore the surname Archer. Professor Jonathan Castleman immediately noticed her literary talent and her pretty face. He suggested that they discuss her writing in a more private setting. Feeling embarrassed, she agreed. The problem was that Jonathan was married. He and his wife had recently had a daughter, Fanny. During lectures, Joan could not take her admiring eyes off the professor. He spoke enthusiastically about how difficult the writer's path could be. Before your talent is recognized, you must go through criticism, failures, and perhaps even poverty. Joan gladly agreed to look after Fanny while he and his wife Carol went out for a visit. Clearly, after the child's birth, the spouses' relationship had worsened. Jonathan proved unprepared for the hardships of family life, especially since he was surrounded by the attention of young female students. Joan realized that she had fallen in love. In the present, Joe continues to enjoy the fame his novels have brought him. The Castlemans attend yet another reception and meet other famous figures from the worlds of literature and science. Some married couples form creative tandems. Joe remarks how fortunate he is that his wife does not write, otherwise he would be in a constant creative crisis. At that very moment he says how much he loves her. To everyone else, their relationship appears perfect. David hopes for public support from his father, but Joe merely says that his son is still searching creatively. Deeply upset, David disappears into the crowd while his father continues signing autographs and taking photos with his fans. People idolize him. Later in a taxi, a small argument breaks out between father and son. David feels worthless, because no one will ever notice him against the backdrop of his great father, who became famous with the publication of his first book. Joe points out that he had a difficult childhood, and that he did not achieve success by chance, but through hard work. Joan tries to smooth over the conflict, asking both her husband and her son to calm down. But David is still hurt that not a single word was said about his story during the reception. All the attention was focused solely on Joe. David decides to spend the remaining days in Stockholm alone and gets out of the taxi. Joan begs her husband not to be so categorical. David needs his authoritative opinion, not hers. After all, who is she? Just a mother and a wife. Suddenly Joan asks Joe not to thank her in his speeches anymore. She does not want to be yet another suffering writer's wife. The man objects, saying that this is not right. Everyone thanks their wives. Joan remembers how as a student, she wrote a story titled The Professor's Wife. Of course Jonathan understood who had inspired it, and he kissed Joe. A forbidden romance began between them. Jonathan introduced Joan to Elaine Mazel. Like many women writers, she was not taken seriously and never received recognition. Only 1,000 copies of her book were sold. When Joan said that writing was the meaning of her life, Elaine advised her to abandon this hopeless pursuit. Even in their boldest fantasies, women do not dare to hope for even a fraction of the attention that men receive, those who write reviews, run publishing houses, and produce anthologies. In the present, despite all the years that have passed, little has changed. Joan wakes up, and not finding her husband beside her, begins to worry. Meanwhile Joe is having dinner at the hotel restaurant and chatting pleasantly with Linnea, his personal photographer. Joan comes downstairs and watches them. When Linnea, wishing Mr. Castleman a good night, leaves, Joan joins her husband. She keeps wondering what exactly they are doing. The next day Joan decides that she needs to spend the day alone, away from this bohemian society that her husband has become a part of. Although Joe insists that they should go through this together, Joan leaves without him. She has much to think about. In the hotel lobby, she runs into Nathaniel. He offers to go to a nearby bar and have a drink. Joan knows it is inappropriate, but she accepts the offer anyway. Nathaniel admits that he has been commissioned to write Joe's biography. When asked whether it is purely a literary study, Nathaniel honestly replies that it is and it isn't. He knows that Joe has made many mistakes in his life. In biographical books, this is often presented as something that can easily be forgiven in a genius. After all, geniuses are not like everyone else, and their creative nature is beyond the understanding of ordinary people. However, in Nathaniel's opinion, this is completely wrong. During preparations for the award ceremony the next day, Joe feels that the flashes of cameras are getting on his nerves and asks for a break. Linnea follows Mr. Castleman, suggesting that they slip away together for a while and get away from all the fuss. Nathaniel knows that Joan used to publish stories in a college magazine. She explains that she gave up writing because it is difficult for a woman in this field, as in many others. Nathaniel notes that even then there were well-known women writers. Joan replies that perhaps she lacked their strength of spirit. She chose a different path. Nathaniel has already spoken with Carol, Joe's first wife. She became a psychiatrist. Their daughter Fanny is a successful dentist. By the way, Carol does not hold a grudge against the other woman. Joan is glad to hear it. Joe tried to maintain contact with his former family, and moreover, Joan herself insisted on it. However, Carol chose to cut all ties. According to Nathaniel, Carol is even grateful to Joan for taking Joe away. Nathaniel asks the woman to answer directly how she feels about Joe's infidelity. But Joan reacts calmly to this as well. Joe is about to kiss Linnea when suddenly the alarm goes off. Joan said it so that he would not forget to take his pills. He was that close to giving in to a moment of weakness. Nathaniel has read Joe's early work and was not impressed. Joan has a simple explanation for that. Back then, Joe simply had not yet gained enough experience as a writer. But Nathaniel does not believe that is the reason, pointing out that Joan's prose, unlike Joe's early work, bears a much stronger resemblance to Castleman's books. It cannot be a coincidence that Joe's style improved so dramatically after he met Joan. Nathaniel urges the woman to stop being invisible and wasting her talent for the sake of creating the legendary figure of Castleman. Joan listens to all this with a sad smile, refusing to rise to the bait, while Nathaniel promises that she will be free to write on her own, if only she reveals all of Joe's dirty secrets. Joan returns to the hotel after dark, which displeases Joe. The woman does not understand the basis of his complaints. She certainly does not have to accompany him to every event. All the attention is focused exclusively on him anyway, especially since Linnea, who looks at him with such adoration, clearly was not letting him get bored. Joe assures his wife that he is not even attracted to Linnea and that he is already too old for that. The argument is interrupted by a call from Susanna. She has given birth. The boy is named Max. The spouses are overjoyed by the birth of their first grandson. Such a happy event reconciles them. Whatever may periodically happen between them, they have lived a good life. Joe also reconciles with his son. He has read his story and is ready to offer constructive criticism, without which creative growth is impossible. In Joe's view, David's story is full of cliches, but every writer goes through that at the beginning of a professional journey. It was very important for David to hear this personally from his father. After dinner at the hotel restaurant, the couple go up to their room, while David stays behind. He clearly has a lot to think about. At some point Nathaniel approaches him and offers to buy him a drink. David is baffled as to how this man knows his name. It had been a wonderful evening, yet Joan still cannot bring herself to stop thinking about the past, about the events of 1960. Joan worked as a secretary at a New York publishing house. The publisher was looking for young authors, and it was Joan who suggested that he take an interest in Joe. He had just finished his first novel and wanted Joan to give him her honest opinion. Since he had asked for her honest opinion himself, Joan said that she had not liked it at all, because the characters did not feel real. Joe flew into a rage, declaring that their relationship was doomed if she did not respect him. For her sake, he had sacrificed everything: his family, his job. As soon as the college administration learned about Joe's affair with his student, he was fired. Joan begged him not to leave her. She did not like his text, but she loved him beyond measure. Joan could never have Joe's ambitions or his prospects because she was only a woman. Even if her books were published, they would still merely gather dust on shelves. Joe promised that he would stay with her, but they had to come up with something to save their financial situation. Joan said that the novel's plot was not so bad, but the text needed a complete rewrite. She could fix everything. Joe agreed. Soon the publisher read the revised version of the novel and was absolutely delighted. In the present day, Joe is preparing to receive the Nobel Prize and wants the people closest to him by his side. It is the most important evening of his life. David asks sarcastically whether it is really his. Perhaps all these years he has been looking up to the wrong person. Joe does not understand why his son is behaving this way. Why does he want to ruin everything? David reveals that he spoke with Nathaniel Bone yesterday and now knows the truth. All of Joe's books were actually written by Joan. Joe denies everything, insisting that it is a shameless lie and that Nathaniel Bone is simply trying to make a name for himself through scandal. Joan comes to her husband's defense, assuring David that Nathaniel is nothing more than a fraud. David cries, no longer knowing whom or what to believe. He is completely confused. The spouses go to the award ceremony without him. Joe takes his wife's hand and says that they are doing the right thing. Joan remembers 1968, when she was writing yet another novel to be published under her husband's name. By that time they already had a son, David. Joe would not let the boy into the study, so that he would not see his mother working at the typewriter. In the present, a representative of the Nobel Committee delivers a laudatory speech in honor of Joe Castleman, and calls him a genius of letters. In truth, all those words are meant for Joan, sitting in the front row, but no one knows this except Nathaniel. The king personally presents Joe with the Nobel Prize. The hall erupts in applause. After the formal part, the informal celebration begins. One of the guests asks Joan what she does in life. The woman replies that she brings kings into the world. Joe is invited to the podium and given the floor. In his speech, he says that it is not he who should truly be honored today, but another person, his wife, because all these years she has been his strength and support. Without her, he would not be standing on that stage. Joe says that he wants to share this honor with his better half. Unexpectedly, Joan decides to leave the celebration. Naturally, her departure draws the attention of all the guests. Joe follows his wife anyway and gets into a taxi with her. No longer able to contain her emotions, Joan declares that she intends to divorce him. The man in turn tries to give her his Nobel medal, but she does not want it. If she does not want it, Joe needs it even less. Back in their room, they are finally able to speak openly. Joan cannot go on like this any longer. Every day she wrote from morning till night, yet it was Joe who received the recognition. She was always merely his shadow, his wife. Joe reminds her how he took care of the children and assumed all the household responsibilities, if only so that she would not be distracted from the work she loved. That means they are ideal co-authors. However, this manipulation does not work on Joan. All her life, she endured Joe's infidelities, pouring all her pain into the characters of her novels. But to everyone else, they were the characters of Joe's novels. She has had enough. She is not an editor, not even a co-author. She is the one who has just won the Nobel Prize. Joe wants to know why she married him, if he is so terrible. Joan cries out that she does not know. The woman intends to pack her things and spend the night in David's room. Suddenly Joe clutches at his heart. The woman urgently calls for a doctor. She holds her husband's hands and promises that everything will be all right. Joe asks his wife whether she loves him. Joan replies that she loves him with all her soul. With a smile, he says how beautifully she lies. A team of paramedics appears and tries to resuscitate Joe, but in vain. He dies before Joan's eyes. On the plane on the way back, Nathaniel approaches Joan and offers his condolences. The woman tells him that if he dares to publicly cast doubt on Joe's talent, she will sue him. After that, Joan wishes Nathaniel good luck and makes it clear that the conversation is over. Once she returns home, Joan intends to tell her children the whole truth. Thus begins a new chapter of her life, one that is finally her own.